熒幕八爪魚，八足咁多爪。大家好，我係主持人 Vicky。大家為咗睇綜藝，無非就係睇藝人玩遊戲嘅蝦碌樣，可以開開心心咁樣笑下。咁以下呢個綜藝呢，就有少少唔同啦，就係香港嘅觀眾同埋藝人一齊玩遊戲，大家鬥攞獎品，睇下邊個可以成為最大嘅贏家，係咪好刺激呢？為咗慶祝 TVB 55週年而特別推出嘅有獎遊戲節目，唔玩唔知有獎攞，睇到觀眾同嘉賓一樣緊張刺激。觀眾可以透過手機參與比賽，雖然我哋唔係以直播形式播出，不過喺每晚3場比賽裏面啊，我哋一樣可以緊貼賽果。主持陸浩明、吳若希、林正峰執行派獎任務。而每晚累積得分最高者將會贏得當晚大賽，一連5晚嘅節目，最高分更有機會贏得 Jackpot 大獎添。觀眾們想從中推敲出正確答案贏取分數，都要有翻咁上下嘅獨到眼光。呢個咁新穎嘅綜藝形式，你又點可以錯過呢？鎖定新時代電視一台，今日起唔玩唔知有獎攞。著名歌手女方出過唔少經典音樂作品，
怎可掩飾心中的哀傷？手裏感覺到你雙臂的冰凍。
亦喺音樂旅程上出現多位好拍檔，等我哋一同重溫佢同杜德偉、劉青雲、鐘鎮濤、陳友、阮兆祥等藝人嘅合作片段，就算好友未能親自亮相啊，亦會透過視像同女方傾心相聚。唔知你心目中嘅經典名曲又有冇重現喺銀幕前呢？記住3月12號新時代電視一台，一齊尋找音樂旅程。今日嘅家國提倡多元文化，但係你又知唔知喺幾百年前，種族歧視喺家國社區係十分普遍㗎？唔單止係華人啊，就算係黑人，亦都係受到種種嘅不公平對待。上個月係家國黑人歷史文化月，不如就等我去帶大家去睇下一個展覽，好好咁認識黑人嘅歷史啦。
There's sort of a message in the title already. As We Rise comes from a phrase that Kenneth Montague, the collector who owns all of this work, his father had imparted to him, lifting as we rise. I feel very fortunate that As We Rise actually started as a book, that Kenneth Montague, the collector, and Aperture Foundation in New York, the publishing imprint, they started the book together in collaboration. And they went from hundreds of images down to probably maybe the 170, 180 that we see in the book. And from there, I curated about 100, I think there are about 108 works. So Aperture and Ken already did a huge pre-edit that made my job a lot easier. And the book has a kind of organizing principle of these 3 chapters: community, identity, and power. For me, these 3 ideas are really quite synonymous and porous and fluid. So it was a matter of really kind of thinking about these other relationships that emerge in the works, and then bringing these themes back in, sort of situating them alongside works where they make sense, but understanding that community, identity, and power are all throughout the whole thing. There would be no way that Black artists, Black photographers would be shown in a gallery like this, and how much has changed, and that the fact that those conditions existed back then, it didn't actually inhibit these artists from still making art, I think is a really wonderful and important thing. And specifically the Wedge collection was built around this idea of foregrounding Black artists, championing Black artists, and looking at representations of Black life and Black experiences. And it's really singular to have a focus like that. And of course, Blackness is a very pluralistic thing. It's very rich, it's very complex, it's very nuanced and diverse. There are many, many different iterations of Blackness. And what exactly does that mean? And this is where the idea of the Black Atlantic comes in. I mean, with this exhibition in particular, I've been thinking a lot about this motif of Black photographers photographing Black subjects and Black sitters. So when you have Black photographers taking the camera and working in community, photographing Black subjects. There's a really good representation, a good nuanced and honest representation, which is why you have these works in the exhibition that seem so straightforward of just a Black person at rest, at respite, at leisure. And with the photographs, with art, you almost always know who the photographer was in all of these works. You see their name on the label next to the frame. What you don't see is the name of the sitter. So what a beautiful thing I think it is to see people who clearly meant something to the person behind the camera. I think that has a powerful imprint on the images that are created.
雖然每一張相都有標籤記低攝影者嘅名，但最重要嘅都係呢幅相同埋攝影師見到嘅故事。由即日起至5月14號都可以到 The Polygon Gallery 睇㗎。藝術係記錄嘅其中一種手法，另一個展覽向陽面和其他悲傷故事。藝術家 Mike Boscia 就將家庭軼事、虛構故事同埋日常物品融合喺展覽裏面，並展示咗一系列充滿趣味嘅雕塑作品。喺展覽裏面 ，Mike 有一條名為 Agnes 嘅45分鐘影片，係為咗致敬佢媽媽而改嘅。
So Mike is a very gifted storyteller. His mother was a single mother, and he was really interested in exploring that symbiotic relationship between single parent and children. So he's created a narrative and a fantastical story of a body and its two hands, the hands representing the children and the body representing the parent. So within the video or film, he does tasks like making schnitzel or doing dishes, but how difficult that can be when your gloves are made of hair. So it's this push and pull tensions, like in a relationship between parent and child. Sometimes the parent's trying to do their everyday life and the children make it difficult, and other times they're caring for their children. Like there's a scene where Mike is brushing the hair of the gloves. So within the video, there's also captions where the hands, the gloves, which are also, you can also see within the exhibition, are talking through the captions. Another part of a child to a single parent is the idea of the father, the absent father. So behind me there's a punching bag with a cigarette and an arm. So there's these interesting representations of an absent male figure or an absent father. And so Mike is playing around with that and plays around these characters that he has created. There's a cowboy character, there's this punching bag, there's a clown, and all of these play into this fantastical, surreal story that he creates that connects to his own real life experiences.
如果你對呢一類展覽有所共鳴嘅話，就記得要到 Richmond Art Gallery 度睇下啦。講到童話故事呢，大家細個嘅時候就一定會睇過白雪公主同埋灰姑娘嘅經典之作。但我最中意嘅故事呢，就係綠野仙蹤。最近 Caruso Theatre for Young People 呢，就上演緊一套改編自綠野仙蹤嘅舞台劇。我哋仲邀請埋佢哋嘅演員 Megan 同我哋傾下偈添。雖然話故事係改編自《綠野仙蹤》，但我哋依然可以當一個全新嘅故事去認識。而 Megan 就係飾演小女孩 Dot。
我們這個故事是那個作者自己加他自己的一些味道，還有一些故事的內容進去所以是關於一個小孩10歲的一個小孩他有個非常悲觀的一個家庭背景。他的媽媽過世了好完了，他只有他和他爸爸他爸爸經常喝酒，好完了，他相當是一個大人，得照顧他爸爸，給他爸爸做飯，所以他生活非常難過。I think what attracted me to the show, I think I fell in love with the character. The little girl I played, Dot. Like I had mentioned, she has a very rough family. life, and she doesn't have someone there to show her love and care for her as a child and anyone in the world really needs. And so this is the first time since her mom passed away that she's able to come into this room, meet this stranger who becomes this father figure that she doesn't have in her real life. And I think for once, she's able to forget about being an adult and the obligation she has and escape into this magical world where she can play and imagine and feel loved. And I think that's so important and really heartbreaking too at the end of the play because she has to go back to reality. So I think that's what really attracted me to this role in this play.
喺呢個瘋狂嘅故事，最吸引之處莫過於喺劇情嘅發展同埋佢哋獨創嘅元素。
So it is a reimagined telling of Wizard of Oz from the perspective of the author, Frank L. Baum. The little girl is an added addition to the story, but they create the story of Wizard Oz together in his study. And what's really cool about our production and this play is that everyday objects that you see in the space become characters. Like, a footstool becomes the dog, Toto, and stuff. So it's like you get to use all of these things from that you won't normally be like, oh, that could turn into something or, and it becomes that. And I think it's great for children and adults to see what art and imagination can do to create something really powerful. And you don't need expensive toys, to be entertained. You can literally have a bucket and a pencil and you can, use your imagination to create something so much fun for kids.
呢部老少咸宜嘅舞台劇會演出自今個月26號，有興趣嘅就記得去 Granville Island 嘅 Waterfront Theatre 去睇下啦。最近 AI 成為全球熱話，因為佢唔單止可以好人性化咁對話，仲可以寫稿同埋剪片。唔知未來 AI 以後仲會唔會取代埋我哋主持人嘅身份呢？係咪以後就唔需要再靠人類㗎 ？Cynthia， 我又唔知你點諗呢？
Vicky， 我始終都係覺得人類係無可取替嘅，就好似嚟緊要介紹嘅幾個藝術展覽咁樣，我就覺得 AI 係做唔出好似佢哋嗰種置身其境嘅感覺噃。好啦，廣告之後我哋繼續熒幕八爪魚。加拿大華人社區遍佈各地，尤其係多倫多，更加擁有加拿大最多嘅華裔人口噃。加拿大中文電台 UHN 基金會直播籌款大行動，就為華裔社群改善醫療服務籌集善款。加拿大中文電台攜手 UHN 基金會舉行11小時馬拉松直播籌款活動。今次直播籌款係為大學健康網絡 UHN 華人社區發展基金籌募經費嘅，去幫助華人社區嘅醫療服務，關懷自己嘅社區。籌集到嘅善款更加可以幫助到多倫多西區醫院、多倫多綜合醫院、多倫多康復中心以及米切納教育學院。今次直播籌款意義非凡，全台上下嘅 DJ 當然鼎力參與啦。一班 DJ 身體力行喺直播籌款大行動當日，由早到晚一邊主持直播，一邊喺跑步機上面跑步籌款，用汗水換取大家嘅善款支持。嚟自大學健康網絡嘅工作人員亦都輪番上陣，同各位 DJ 傾下偈，講述大學健康網絡 UHN 華人社區發展基金將會點樣幫助到華裔社群。凝聚華裔社區力量，加拿大中文電台一向站喺最前線。喺風繼續吹節目時段入面，潘 Sir 潘宗明以及周家俊再次出動，舉辦慈善咪霸大賽，用歌聲換取大家嘅支持。今次嘅星級評判就請嚟溫拿嘅彭健新點評7位 DJ， 7個唔同版本嘅經典金曲《借來的美夢》。參賽嘅 DJ 分別有梅志輝、樂希、張志文，仲有周浩輝、所羅門、梁建恒同埋壓軸出場嘅金曲教主盧永亨啊！佢 佢哋各有特色，又各有風格，相信各位觀眾都一時之間難分高下。唔單止觀眾咁樣覺得噃，就連評判都15-16，唔知道揀邊個好啊！見到大家為咗做善事咁落力，最後佢都決定一於打和，大家都係 No.1。見到一班 DJ 咁落力，善款當然節節上升啦。多謝咁多位善長仁翁嘅支持，相信喺不久嘅將來，華裔社區將會享受到更快捷、更方便嘅醫療服務啊！David Rubin 係一位加拿大原住民雕塑藝術家，最中意呢就係用大自然作為靈感啦。安省美術館最近就邀請咗佢喺多倫多舉辦咗一場雕塑藝術展啊！西北原住民藝術家 David Rubin 擅長以金屬同埋石頭製作雕塑以及藝術品。1975年，David 開始學習同埋研究唔同嘅原住民故事，佢將收集到嘅知識同口述歷史變成咗啟發藝術創作嘅靈感。David 同佢嘅藝術品由70年代開始遊走加拿大各地，同時將原住民嘅故事透過藝術分享俾大眾。
David is one of what some people call the avant-garde of Inuit art and Inuit sculpture, and he's part of a generation who have traveled to the South or live in the South, who have traveled the world, who have incorporated contemporary stories, thinking about colonialism, also thinking about ancient stories, cultural stories, historical stories in their work. So they've really been at the forefront of thinking about modern Inuit, basically. David works in soapstone, Brazilian soapstone, some African stones. He works in quartz, he works in whalebone, and also in metal. So there is a lot of different materials that are combined in his work in radically new ways. Each material has its own way of telling him what it is. So he says sometimes he'll wait with a stone for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden an image will come out of the stone, and then he knows it's time to start carving. Sometimes it'll take 2 years with a stone that he will work, and it's like magic. It suddenly comes to life for him.
2022年 David 喺藝術界嘅貢獻更加得到 Governor General's Award 嘅認可。今年佢受到安省美術館邀請，為大家帶嚟個人展 Radical Remembrance.
Radical Remembrance, the sculptures of David Rubin Pictukan. Thinking about radical remembrance, the way that he encapsulates Inuit storytelling, ancient stories in his stonework, in his sculptures, and the work that he has done to become so well acquainted with the stories that people have heard from childhood onwards and rethinking them for the contemporary moment is getting at the root of the culture, I think, which is the meaning of radical. So there's 50 works for 50 years. He started in 1972, so we wanted to include one work per year.
展覽將會持續到6月25號，有興趣嘅朋友記得留意啦。有人話紡織品係其中一個最古老嘅藝術形式。多倫多嘅 Etobicoke 曾經就有唔少嘅紡織品工作坊噃，生產大量嘅地氈以及手工織品。無論係邊個年代，製作紡織品都係唔少人嘅愛好噃。其中製作被鋪 quilting 就係一項熱門嘅手工藝愛好啦。喺華人社會有製作百家被嘅傳統，相傳喺古代，新手媽媽會向鄰居要啲布碎，用嚟縫製被鋪俾小朋友，祝福佢哋健康長大。而喺北美洲呢 quilting 嘅縫製手法雖然同製作百家被相類似，不過背後嘅故事就大不同啦。縫製被鋪嘅技術由歐洲殖民者帶到嚟北美洲。北美洲嘅 Amish 阿米什人將呢項傳統發揚光大，佢哋利用布碎拼湊出唔同嘅圖案，製作色彩豐富、圖案精美嘅被鋪。呢項藝術受到唔少北美民眾嘅追捧㗎。多倫多 Etobicoke Civic Centre 最近就有一場由紡織品愛好者舉辦嘅展覽，展示不同嘅 quilting 作品。
So we have quilts, we also have knitted items and woven items. They make hooked rugs, which are really more, they're called rugs, but really more their decoration for the walls. I'm a quilter, and I'm with the Quilters Guild, so this really is my favorite. We made this after the unmarked graves were found at the residential school in Kamloops 2 years ago. And at that point, they had found what they thought were 215 unmarked graves. So we made a quilt with using primarily orange because that color is important for the residential school movement. 215 blocks that each have a little bit of orange to represent the sadness and the horror that we feel that this happened in our history.
製作被鋪嘅方法其實都大致相同嘅，佢哋會先將唔同嘅布料製作成細細塊，再重新組合，形成唔同嘅圖案。而正正因為圖案之間嘅組合，就係令到被鋪變得特別嘅魔法啦。
What we do is we take big pieces of fabric and cut them into little pieces of fabric and then sew them back together. Different styles of quilts with different colors, different designs, modern, traditional. It's a wonderful craft. I love doing it. We say it's what keeps us sane. You know, we don't go crazy because we have an art form that we love to do.
原住民藝術源遠流長，形式更加豐富多樣。唔少原住民藝術家都會將部落嘅故事以及古老傳統結合埋繪畫同雕塑方式，展現俾大眾認識㗎。Gallery Arcturus 係多倫多一間小型嘅前衛藝術館，呢度麻雀雖小，不過一樣有唔同嘅空間，提供俾藝術家展現自己嘅作品噃，係城中唔少藝術愛好者嘅 hidden gem。We
have at least 3 floors plus other spaces. So on the main level, we have usually our feature show, and it's going to be a mixture of artists, but also larger installations. So it could be constructions, but it'll usually have multiple artworks, sculpture and painting, drawings. We do a lot of collage, but we also have on the second floor a collage gallery dedicated just to the work of collage, which of course is paper and glue and sometimes very simple, but a lot of that artwork is made here in the gallery.
佢哋最新嘅展覽 Was Given 就將西北原住民藝術家嘅作品融合唔同形式嘅現代藝術，為原住民藝術帶嚟獨特嘅視覺。
On our main level, we have a show which focuses on work by an artist who was originally from the Northwest Territories named Floyd Kaptana. And we have a lot of his sculptures and paintings. But we've also mixed in pieces, artwork from other artists, so that it works together. There's a lot of color, but there's also mixed media. There's sculpture, there's painting, there's pastels. But it's arranged in such a way that you can see it as a total, not just one piece or one artist. The large painting in the next room, the landscape, is by Stephanie Boyd, and it is actually really about the color. It's intended to bring color into the room. It's a mixture of work is with Floyd Kaptana's sculptures, and they are sort of floating there in the room with the painting. In a sense, you have to see it yourself. It actually is hard to describe in words. When you see it together with the pieces, you can decide, does this work or not, but you'll feel it as a whole environment.
多得有呢啲小眾藝術館，大家就可以由不同嘅視角出發，了解唔同族裔同埋文化嘅藝術。下次再有新展覽，大家都記得要支持啊！睇完咁多原住民藝術家嘅作品，相信大家對佢哋嘅文化又多咗一份認識啦。Vicky， 你又有冇學到嘢呢？
我相信唔淨止我學到嘢啊，電視機前面嘅觀眾亦都獲益良多。好啦，今集時間又差唔多啦，下個星期同樣時間，熒幕八爪魚再見啦，拜拜。